She stood in the doorway holding a glass of wine like it was a prop, like her whole performance depended on the angle of her wrist. "Are you seriously not going to say anything?" she asked. I didn't. Not because I didn't have words. I had too many. They were crammed up in my throat like rush hour traffic, honking and stalled and useless. That night, I'd done the unthinkable. I'd said no. To her. After 7 months of sleeping beside a woman who treated me like a houseplant, water me when convenient, but mostly ignore me, I'd finally decided to mirror her silence. And now suddenly she noticed me? Let me rewind exactly 6 hours. She came home humming. Yes, humming. Like she hadn't spent nearly a year pretending I didn't exist unless she needed me to take the trash out or sign a birthday card for her coworkers. Hair curled. Lipstick fresh. She hadn't worn lipstick in our house in 8 months. She leaned over the counter, tilted her head, and said, "I was thinking we could finally have a little us time tonight." I blinked. Us time? The same woman who used to pretend to fall asleep at 8:15? I asked, "What changed?" She paused. It was the kind of pause people make when they're building a life from scratch. "I've just realized how distant I've been. And I miss you. I really do." It didn't sound like her voice. It sounded like a line she'd practiced in the mirror. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I walked past her. Quiet. Cold. The way she's done to me for 221 days in a row. I counted. She followed me down the hallway like it was my behavior that was foreign. That's when the whine appeared. The soft threats. The gaslighting. "You're acting weird, Leonard. Is this about earlier? You're making it a thing when it's not." But it was a thing. She didn't know I'd found the folder. The one labeled Work Docs, hidden on her laptop. She didn't know I'd listened to a message she forgot to delete, a voicemail that began with "Hey beautiful" and ended with "Last night was amazing." And still, I said nothing. The most dangerous version of me isn't the one who yells. It's the one who watches. And I was watching her unravel finally. Her eyes searched my face for clues. For forgiveness she hadn't earned. For comfort she'd spent a year withholding. And it hit me. She wanted my affection again. Because someone else had just taken theirs away from her. I sat on the edge of the bed and whispered, "Who stopped texting you?" She dropped the wine glass. And now we begin. The wine glass didn't shatter when it hit the carpet, but something in her face cracked. She bent down to pick it up slowly, trying to seem calm, but her fingers trembled like she'd just been caught stealing. I didn't move. I didn't help. For once, I let her clean up her own mess. "Leonard," she said, forcing a shaky breath, "what are you talking about?" There it was. The performance. Innocence with a nervous twitch. She straightened up and stood there like she was waiting for her next line. But the script had changed, and she wasn't holding the pen anymore. I could have told her everything I knew right then. I could have told her that I listened to the entire voicemail twice. That I recognized the man's voice as someone I'd seen tagged in one of her old photos, a co-worker from her firm. I could have told her that I'd seen the Uber receipts, the ones that didn't match her story about late nights helping Emily move. I could have told her I had been suspicious for a long time and only needed one crack in her mask. She gave me an avalanche. But I didn't. I stood up, walked past her again, and calmly said, "Let me know when you're ready to talk like a grown-up." She didn't follow me this time. I went into the garage, sat in the dark on the folding chair next to the old paint cans, and just breathed. The only light came from the sliver under the door and the occasional flicker of her pacing shadows. I imagined her staring at her phone, debating whether to delete things or spin new lies. I imagined her scrolling through messages with her lover, or maybe ex-lover now. Maybe he was the one who ghosted her. Maybe that's why she suddenly remembered I existed. That thought punched me in the chest. I wasn't plan A. I wasn't even plan B. I was the emergency spare tire she left to rot in the trunk until the real one went flat. And here's the twist. I still loved her. Even after all of it. Even after the avoidance, the intimacy famine, the dead stares, the breadcrumbing affection, the lies. I still loved her. That's what made this unbearable. Because when someone you love turns cold, it's not just rejection. It's identity theft. You start asking questions like, was I ever enough? Was it always like this and I just didn't notice? I didn't sleep that night. When I walked back in, she was already in bed. Not asleep, just facing the wall like she used to when she was pretending I didn't deserve answers. But she spoke. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't respond. She turned around and said it louder. "Leonard, I'm sorry. I've been distant, I know. I've just been confused about a lot of things." I looked at her. She looked smaller somehow. like the energy she'd been feeding into someone else had drained out of her and left only the frame. Did he end it? I asked quietly. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. That was my answer. That's when the real panic hit her. She sat up, wide-eyed, desperate. Nothing happened. I swear. We just talked. It was emotional, sure, but I never. I laughed. Not the funny kind. The kind that sounded like it had been trapped in my stomach for a year. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. She looked like she didn't recognize me. Maybe because I'd finally stopped begging. The next morning, she made breakfast. Full spread. Pancakes, eggs, toast, like it was Sunday brunch at a bed and breakfast we'd never visit again. She sat down across from me, smiling like she could reset the world with enough syrup and sunshine. Let's take a day trip, she said. Just you and me. Get away. Talk. Laugh. You remember laughing, right? I stared at her. Do you? Her eyes welled up. She said she felt like she'd lost herself. That she made mistakes. That she wanted to fix things. But all I could think about was how many nights I sat in the same kitchen, alone, wondering if she was safe, while she was probably texting someone who called her babe. I told her I needed time. She said she understood, but I don't think she does. Because she's not just begging for attention now. She's begging for the version of me she walked away from. And I'm not sure that guy's still here. She wants redemption. I want honesty. And deep down, I think she knows she can't have both. The next few days felt like I was living inside a badly written play, one where the actress realized the audience was finally onto her, so she overacted every line. Shayla became oddly attentive. Her tone softened. She'd linger in doorways, offer little shoulder squeezes, ask questions about my work like she hadn't ignored my last 6 project presentations. She even tried to initiate a kiss on the cheek before I left for the office, something she hadn't done in almost a year. But it all felt rehearsed. And I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. Every gesture, every sweet tone, it all landed wrong. Too much, too late. Like feeding soup to a drowning man. I knew her sudden affection had less to do with me and more to do with the crumbling connection she thought she had with someone else. I'd quietly started gathering evidence. Not because I wanted to catch her, I already knew, but because I needed to understand just how far gone things were. I needed to stop lying to myself that this was salvageable. One evening, while she was in the shower, I accessed her old iPad. She'd forgotten it still synced to her phone. I opened the Messages app with shaking fingers, telling myself I'd only glance. I told myself I didn't need to know everything. But once you peek into the dark, it swallows you whole. The conversation was with someone named Marcus. I didn't recognize the name at first. The thread wasn't long, clearly cleaned out, but not clean enough. The most recent message was from 2 days ago. It read, "You're the one who said we could keep this quiet. Don't act like I meant nothing." I froze. Not because of the message itself, but because of the photo attached above it, a blurry shot of Shayla, taken from across a table at some bar I didn't recognize. She was mid-laugh, hair curled, wearing that same green blouse she wore the night she told me she had a work event downtown. That night, she came home at 12:40 a.m. smelling like stale cocktails and excuses. Now I had confirmation, but no satisfaction, because nothing prepared me for what followed. I scrolled up. Another message. He still doesn't know, does he? You're playing both sides and expecting me to wait around. I'm not your backup plan. Backup plan. That word hit harder than I expected. It explained everything, the silence, the distance, the weird pity kindness she'd shown me lately. I wasn't plan A. I wasn't even the escape. I was the landing pad when the pilot bailed mid-flight. And worst of all, she hadn't just cheated with someone she was in love with. She cheated with someone who resented her for not choosing him fully. The next morning, I put the iPad back exactly where I found it. She made eggs and acted like it was Christmas morning. She suggested we go hiking. Let's unplug, reset, she said with this fake innocence like I hadn't just seen her emotional crime scene in text form. On the trail, she walked ahead of me, calling back about wildflowers and breezes like we were still newlyweds. I kept watching the back of her head, wondering how she managed to swing between detachment and desperation so seamlessly. At one point, she reached back and grabbed my hand. And I let her. I don't know why. Maybe because part of me needed to feel what it was like to pretend, just once, that I was still the man she wanted. But her hand felt unfamiliar. Her grip unsure, like she was holding on to a memory, not a person. That night, she tried to initiate something. Really tried. Lingered touches. Soft whispery voice. She even wore that old silky nightgown I'd bought her on our 5th anniversary, the one she hadn't touched in years. "Do you want me?" she asked quietly. And I stood there, looking at her like a stranger. I thought about the months of cold shoulders, the voicemail, the text thread, the way she made me feel like the burden while she flirted with someone else behind locked screens. So I said, "Do you want me? Or do you just miss the version of yourself who used to?" She didn't answer. She just sat on the edge of the bed, jaw tight, blinking faster than usual. She asked what I meant, but she already knew. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't trying to save us. She was trying to save her own image of herself. She wanted to believe she wasn't the kind of person who let a good thing rot. But I was the good thing. And she did let it rot. She went to bed in silence. I stayed up. That night, I began making a different kind of plan. Not to hurt her, not to expose her, but to leave in a way she couldn't spin or rewrite. Quietly, completely. The kind of exit that doesn't slam doors, it erases footprints. The strange thing about finally deciding to leave isn't the pain, it's the quiet. No cinematic heartbreak, no screaming match, no dramatic lightning outside the window. Just this eerie, steady stillness that settles over your bones once your heart finishes breaking. And mine had been breaking in slow motion for over a year. I just didn't want to admit how deep the cracks had gone. After that night, the night she tried to reel me back in with silken whispers, I stayed awake until I heard her breathing even out. When I was sure she was asleep, I got out of bed, walked down the hallway barefoot, and stood in front of the spare room closet. That closet hadn't been opened in months. It held old suitcases, winter coats we hadn't used since pre-pandemic life, and a box labeled Leonard's college junk that she always threatened to throw out. I sat down on the floor and pulled out a small travel bag, not too big, just enough for essentials. One change of clothes, my spare phone, an old watch she gave me back when she still believed I was her forever. I didn't take everything. That wasn't the point. I wasn't leaving to punish her. I wasn't storming out to make a scene. I just needed to disappear quietly enough that she would have to sit alone with the echo. But before I zipped the bag shut, I added one more thing, a letter. A short one. Just a single paragraph, written in the notepad I kept by the guest bed when my insomnia got bad. "Shayla, you stopped touching me long before you slept with him. I begged for connection and you gave me polite silence. I wanted love and you gave me your back. You only reached for me again when he stopped answering. I'm not your plan B. I'm not the man you crawl back to when your fantasy world folds in on itself. I'm gone, not for revenge, but because I finally love myself more than I love your potential." I folded the note and slid it under the jewelry box she kept on her nightstand. She'd find it eventually. Maybe when looking for a necklace to wear to brunch with her mother. Maybe while trying to piece together why the house felt too quiet. I didn't care when, just that she read it. The next morning, I was gone before sunrise. I didn't go far. I wasn't that brave. I checked into a small motel off Route 9 that smelled like lemons and loneliness. I told the front desk clerk I'd be there a while. He didn't ask questions. I guess I had the face of a man who needed space. For 3 days, I didn't answer her calls. For 3 days, I let the texts pile up. "Where are you? Please come home. I'm scared, Leonard. I messed up. Just talk to me. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I didn't sleep with him. I swear. This is cruel. The guilt came in waves. And I almost caved. Almost. But then, on day 4, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. It was short. No greeting, no signature. Just a screenshot of a message she'd sent to Marcus 2 weeks ago. While I was making her dinner and lighting candles, she never noticed. "He's so boring. He means well, but I feel nothing. It's like living with a couch that apologizes." That sentence burned. Not because it wasn't accurate. I had become soft, apologetic, forgettable. But because I became that for her. I adapted myself into someone easier to love, quieter to fight with, safer to abandon. And still, she called me a couch. A couch with feelings. I stared at that message until my vision blurred. And just like that, all the guilt I'd carried drained out of me. Later that evening, I drove back to the house, not to move back in, not to argue, but to collect the rest of what I needed. She wasn't there. Probably at yoga or therapy or whatever narrative she'd crafted to cope with the fact that her emotional safety net had finally been cut. When I walked into the bedroom, it looked like nothing had changed. The sheets were still folded, her slippers still under the bed. But on her nightstand, the letter I'd left was gone. In its place was a folded napkin from a coffee shop we used to go to years ago. On it, in smudged ink, she'd written, "If I could undo everything, I would. But I know you finally see me." And that's what I was always afraid of. No apology. No denial. Just that. A confession and a eulogy in one line. I left the house that night for the second time, but with a different weight in my chest. Not sadness. Not even anger. Just clarity. She never stopped wanting love, she just stopped wanting mine. And the more I chased, the less I mattered. But now, she wants me back. Now that the lights are on and the mask is off. And the scariest part? A small part of me still wants to go home. I thought distance would numb it. I thought if I just stayed away long enough, the ache would settle into something I could manage, like background noise. But the truth is, even a motel with blackout curtains and industrial-strength silence doesn't drown out the sound of regret echoing inside your own head. It was the 6th day since I left. I had avoided every call, every message, every accidental email she sent claiming she found an old photo or just remembered that thing you left in the garage. I was doing well, or at least I thought I was. Until I drove by our favorite diner without thinking. It's one of those old-school places where the pancakes come bigger than your face and the waitresses have names like Jolene and Barb. We used to go there on Sundays, back when Sundays meant something. I told myself I'd just swing by for coffee, maybe a quick breakfast. I hadn't had a real meal in days. When I walked in, it was quieter than I remembered. Mid-morning lull. A few booths taken. I chose one in the back, by the window. Ordered coffee. Tried not to think. But fate's a twisted playwright. I glanced over to the corner booth, the one we always used to sit in. And there she was. Shayla. Sitting across from a man with a beard and a gray hoodie. She was leaning forward, hands curled around a mug, laughing in that breathy way I hadn't heard in over a year. I felt my stomach coil. My brain tried to convince me it wasn't her. That I was mistaken. But then she reached up, tucked her hair behind her ear exactly the way she always did when she was nervous or excited, and I knew. It was her. And it wasn't just any man. It was Marcus. I don't know how I knew. Maybe from the photo in the message thread. Maybe from the smug way he looked at her, like he thought he owned the punchline to every joke. But it was him. I froze. I should have left. Should have turned right around and gone back to my motel room, buried myself in cheap sheets and shut it all out. But I didn't. Instead, I watched. He leaned closer. She blushed. She reached for his hand, and he pulled it away. Just slightly. Not harsh, but enough to send a message. And then it clicked. She wasn't here to rekindle anything. She was here to beg. He was the one pulling away now. The power had shifted. Her plan to have him as her escape hatch had backfired. And now, she was groveling. She said something I couldn't hear, and he leaned back with a smirk and shook his head. She looked down, deflated. Rejected. And suddenly, I felt nothing. No rage. No jealousy. No satisfaction. Just emptiness. Because for a moment, I saw her for who she was without the fantasy I'd wrapped around her all these years. And she wasn't mysterious or magical or hard to understand. She was a woman who gambled good love for temporary attention. And she lost. I dropped a 20 on the table, left my coffee untouched, and walked out without being seen. Later that night, I got another message from her. A new one. I saw your car today. Please, can we talk? I know I don't deserve it. But I'm scared. I feel like everything's collapsing and I just want to hear your voice. She was unraveling. And this time, it wasn't because of guilt. It was because he had let go. I didn't answer. But I didn't delete the message either. I laid on the motel bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in slow, hypnotic circles, and asked myself a question I hadn't dared to before. If she came crawling back, not out of love, but out of loneliness, would I let her? And if I did, would that make me better than her? Or worse? I didn't sleep that night. But by morning, I had made a decision. The thing about pretending you're okay is eventually, someone believes it. And sometimes, that someone is you. I had spent days, nearly a week, convincing myself I was strong, grounded, immune to her touch now. But all it took was a single knock on my motel room door to make my chest tighten like a fist. It was nearly 11 p.m., and I'd just come back from a long, pointless drive around the lake. I hadn't answered Shayla's latest messages. Her tone had shifted from apology to confusion to desperation. The last one read, "Please just talk to me, Leonard. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to see me." I stared at it for hours before putting my phone on silent. I hadn't told her where I was. At least, I thought I hadn't. But when the knock came, soft but deliberate, I knew it was her before I even reached the door. I opened it halfway, just enough to confirm what I already suspected, and there she stood. Drenched from the drizzle, mascara faintly smudged, hair tucked behind her ears in that familiar way that used to make my stomach flip. She clutched a canvas bag like it held her last chance at dignity. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. I didn't answer. I just stepped back. She walked in slowly, as if afraid of the silence. She looked around the room like she wasn't sure what hurt more, the fact that I'd been living here or the fact that I hadn't told her. Her eyes landed on the half-packed suitcase in the corner. She didn't ask where I was planning to go next. She probably already knew I had no idea. She set the canvas bag down on the table and unzipped it. Slowly, carefully, like she thought if she moved gently enough, the pasture would forgive her. "I brought you some things," she said. "You left your razor, and that old hoodie you always sleep in. I washed it." I stared at her. "Is that what this is about? Laundry?" She flinched. "No. I mean, yes. I didn't know how else to come here without making it weird." "You cheated, Shayla. It's already weird." She looked down at her hands. "I didn't sleep with him." I raised an eyebrow. "That the part we're still hanging on to?" Her voice cracked. "I swear, it never got physical. But I won't lie and say I didn't want it to, or that I didn't let it get too far. Emotionally, I betrayed you, and I know it." For a moment, the silence between us was so thick it felt like a second presence in the room. "I didn't come to beg," she finally said. "I came to tell you the truth." I didn't stop her. Not because I wanted to hear it, but because I needed to. Not for closure. For clarity. She sat down at the edge of the motel bed and began talking. And for the first time in what felt like years, she didn't sound like she was rehearsing. She told me everything. That it started with harmless flirting. That she liked feeling seen again. That the attention made her feel younger, desirable, like more than just a wife folding laundry in silence. That when I became quieter, softer, more careful, she mistook it for indifference, not the desperation it really was. She told me Marcus was never serious. That he pulled away the moment she started talking about feelings. That he made her feel disposable. And that, in some twisted way, it made her realize what she had done to me. She wiped her eyes. "You were always there, Leonard." I just forgot what that meant. I stared at her. And for a moment, I saw not my wife, but the woman I fell in love with years ago. Tired. Flawed. Real. "I don't know how to fix it," she whispered. "I don't know if I can. But I came here because I need you to know. I see what I did. And I hate it." I took a breath. "I'm not here to be your redemption arc. You don't get to crawl back because he didn't love you." Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm not crawling back because of him. I'm here because I realized I left the only person who ever truly stayed." The room fell into that strange stillness again, not peaceful, not chaotic, just full of unspoken things. I didn't tell her to leave, but I didn't tell her to stay either. I watched her curl up under the scratchy motel blanket, facing away from me, like I had so many nights before. This time, though, it wasn't me doing the reaching. And sometime between midnight and dawn, as the rain hit the window in soft, inconsistent taps, I realized. Forgiveness isn't a decision. It's a battle. And mine was only just beginning. I woke up to the sound of her crying. Not loud sobs. Not the kind meant to be heard and comforted. It was softer than that. Almost like she was trying to smother it with the motel pillow. A sound so quiet it stabbed deeper than any scream could have. I stayed still, eyes open, watching the ceiling change color as the morning sun tried to push its way through the dusty blinds. She didn't know I was awake. She thought I was still lost in sleep, but I was wide awake, absorbing the weight of everything I never thought would be part of our story. There was something haunting about hearing her cry like that, not for show, not for drama, but from someplace far beneath the surface. The part that doesn't know how to perform anymore. And yet, I didn't comfort her. Not this time. Because something inside me had changed. I didn't trust her sadness anymore. Not yet. Maybe not ever. When she realized I was awake, she quickly sat up, wiping her face like it would erase everything that spilled out while she thought I wasn't listening. She tried to smile, one of those hesitant, guilty smiles that looks like it wants to curl up and die halfway through forming. "I didn't mean to wake you," she said. "You didn't," I lied. She nodded, as if that was the most she deserved. Maybe it was. She asked if I wanted to get breakfast. Like we were two coworkers who spent the night after a failed work retreat and were just trying to make it through checkout without awkwardness. I said no. She said okay. We sat in silence for a long while. She sipped motel coffee. I scrolled pointlessly through emails I wasn't going to answer. Then she did something I didn't expect. She reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of paper, folded, creased, worn like she'd been holding it for days. "What's that?" I asked, still not looking at her. I don't know. A confession, maybe. A timeline. Something real. I took it, unfolded it slowly. It wasn't a letter. It was a list. A list of dates and places. Restaurants. Phone calls. 2 nights where she'd lied and said she was at her sister's. 1 work trip that wasn't work at all. Some items were vague. Others terrifyingly specific. June 9th, Marcus picked me up from the gym. Drove around. I cried. He kissed me. I kissed back. August 14th, you asked if I wanted to go to the lake house. I said I was too tired. I wasn't. I had dinner with him that night. I wore the blue dress you liked. October 3rd, he asked if I'd leave you. I told him I needed time. I never told you he asked. October 21st, I knew it was over with him. He laughed when I said I still had feelings for you. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it, laid it on the nightstand, and asked the question I never thought I'd say out loud. Why are you really here? She didn't flinch. Didn't deflect. Because I chose the wrong person. And I need to live with that. But more than that, I need to try, Leonard. Not to win you back. Not to fix what can't be fixed. But to finally show you what the truth sounds like from me. I stared at her. Her makeup was gone. Her nails chipped. Hair messy. She looked nothing like the woman who used to float through parties and command rooms. She looked raw. Human. The version I used to pray would return when I still had hope. I don't know what happens next, she whispered. But I'm not going back to the house until you tell me to. I'm not going to try to control this. I just needed to hand you the truth. All of it. I nodded slowly. Not because I forgave her, but because it was the first time I believed her. I told her I needed space. Real space. Not a day, not a motel week. I needed to be alone in a way that wasn't about punishing her, but about rediscovering whether the man I used to be even exists anymore. She stood, nodded, and walked to the door. But before she left, she turned and said something I'll never forget. You once said that you loved me because I saw the softest parts of you and never tried to harden them. I think I stopped doing that. And I don't expect you to love me again. But I just wanted you to know, I still remember who you were. And I'm sorry I made you forget. And then she left. No drama. No tears. No final plea. Just silence and a door that closed gently behind her. I sat on the bed for a long time, holding the confession list in my hand. And that's when I realized something important. She wasn't trying to win. She had nothing left to win with. She was just trying to be seen before she disappeared from my life for good. But the question was, would I let her? 3 weeks passed. No contact. Not a single call. No messages. No surprise appearances or guilt-laced pleas. In that silence, the very thing I used to dread became the first time I could finally breathe. I spent those weeks doing things I hadn't done in years. Not dramatic things. Just simple, human things. I went to the movies alone. Ate greasy fries in my car. Sat on a park bench and watched people walk dogs. I called my brother, who I hadn't really spoken to since my wedding, and we talked about nothing for an hour. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to be someone something. I was just me. But the silence also gave space for clarity. I read Shayla's confession list 100 times. At first, I treated it like evidence, each line a nail in the coffin. But the more I sat with it, the more I saw it for what it really was, a surrender. She didn't make excuses. She didn't protect her pride. She didn't spin the story to save face. She gave me the ugly truth. Raw, unearned, and fully mine to hold or discard. And slowly, without meaning to, something began to thaw inside me. I started remembering the little things. The way she used to leave me notes in my lunch when I worked late hours. How she sat by my bedside through 2 surgeries. The way she used to laugh with her whole body when I tripped over my own shoelaces trying to impress her. Yes, she broke something in us. But before that, we had built something worth remembering. I didn't know if that was enough to fix what was broken, but I knew it was enough to start a conversation. So, I called her. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice cracked just from saying hello. I could hear how careful she was being, like even answering might scare me off. I've been thinking, I said. There's a difference between coming back and starting over. I'm not sure I want to come back, but I'd be open to starting something new. From the ground up. As 2 different people, not clinging to the ones we used to be. She didn't speak at first. Just this slow, trembling breath. Then she said, "I'd like that more than you know." We didn't meet up right away. We started with short conversations, then coffee, then a long walk through the neighborhood where we used to dream about buying a house we never bought. We didn't rush. We didn't pretend it was all okay. But we showed up, for real this time. And one night, weeks later, after another quiet dinner at a small Italian place neither of us had been to before, she reached across the table and said, "I don't expect you to fall in love with me again, but I'm falling in love with you all over again." I didn't cry. I didn't run. I didn't fold. I just smiled, took her hand, and said, "Let's take it slow." And we did. Healing isn't lightning. It's rain. Quiet. Constant. Necessary. We still have a long way to go. But we're walking it together now, not because we're bound by what we used to be, but because we're willing to discover who we can become. And for the first time in a long time, I feel seen. Not as the man she forgot, but as the man she finally chose, with eyes wide open.